Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fearless Training Raw Knowledge podcast with your host, myself as ever, Alex Connor, where we talk everything training, nutrition and lifestyle collectively. Now my guest this week is Alan Mao. Now Alan is one of the trainers and one of the team members from Flex Success. So we've had in the past Lizzie, and we'd also have Coach Big Nick from Flex Success. I do endeavor to get more of the team on because they are very good at what they do, and they are some of the most authentic and knowledgeable coaches within Australia, and I have a lot of respect for them. And today me and Alan really went and took a bit of a deep dive into the elements of a bodybuilding or a physique competition preparation. We talked about the preparatory period, so leading up into a competition, setting expectations with the athlete, looking at behaviors and lifestyles. We really touch base on that a lot in this episode. It's a very common theme. It's a very important part of anything, especially in the realms of physique sports, and it's something, in my opinion, that does not get enough attention, and it certainly doesn't get enough clarity or explanation around what and how that actually can affect your success in totality within the realms of physique sports, but more so in all aspects of life as well. Now, a little bit about Alan. He is a body recomposition specialist at Flex Success, and his mission is to have a positive impact on people's lives through movement and nutrition. So he's developed his passion through his own journey, as we talk about, and as a competitive professional natural bodybuilder, and he fell in love with the process and helping people achieve their goals within the same realms. And again, we go over Alan's journey. We start off with a bit of a synopsis, as always, about the guest, their journey, their past, how they started. And I think this is quite important. This is often why I do start with this within a podcast, not only because it seems very simple or self-explanatory, but I think it's important to give a definition to who someone is, what they do, why and how they do it, and vitally, how they came upon their passion. Because if you can start to realize that if you find something in life that you are good at and that you're passionate about, you can be very successful within those endeavors. Now, one last thing before we get into the podcast. Once again, you've guessed it, I'm going to talk about the Fearless Training United Academy, because it is now live for everyone and everybody. This is a platform, okay? This is a culture, this is a community where you can learn, you can educate yourself in everything training, nutrition, and lifestyle, as we always talk about here on the podcast. It is a subscription-based platform. If you go over to my website at Fearless Training United and head over, it'll be on the main page, but if you click into the academy, it'll give you a bit of a background. You can sign up and join for $25 a week, and you can cancel at any time. There is a plethora of professional videos there, not only with myself, but with other peers and practitioners, and we are giving you what you need to know. We are giving you the best, the highest quality information that we know from the literature, from experience as well, so you can go and take away this knowledge and apply it, again, in a user-friendly manner to achieve your own physique goals and more. So if you've got any questions, as always, about that, please email me, as in the links in the description below. This is very exciting. There is weekly videos being uploaded to it, and it will constantly be ever-changing and improving. However, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation this week with Alan Mao. All right, Alan, welcome to the Fearless Training Raw Knowledge podcast, my friend. Thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much, Alex. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Yeah, really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure, my friend. So currently you're based in Perth, is that right at the moment?
Yes, so I was in Brisbane. I think that's when we met in person a couple of years ago, and then but I moved to Perth last year. Uh, no particular reason, apart from the fact that I've been here a few times. I really like the city. My best mate moved over here a few years ago as well, so I thought, why not give it a try? And if I don't like it, I just move back. So, but it's been really good so far. And plus, I guess with Flex Success, I guess all the work that we do, it's all pretty much online. So that kind of gives us the flexibility to do that. So yeah, it's a blessing. So I love it.
Yeah, that's great, dude. Always good to experience new parts of the world and like you said, give it a go, right? Now, congratulations on your recent successes. I know you've just come off the back end of a competition period, which I really want to dive into, as we've talked about off the screen. But before we do, just to give a bit of context now, I know for the regular listeners, they'll know that we've had a couple of other of the members of the team from Flex Success, but perhaps just give us a bit of a background about yourself, Alan, what you do, what you're passionate about, and your role specifically at Flex Success.
Yeah, so I'm a online coach at Flex Success. I've been with the team for about 4 years now. So obviously Dean and Lizzie, I'm sure you've interviewed them already. They started the Flex Success team, and I got on board pretty early on. With, I guess I wasn't a personal trainer. Like, you know how a lot of people get into the online space, going from being a personal trainer, moving into the online space. But I kind of went for, I guess, a bit of an untraditional route because at the time I was studying, finance at uni and all this sort of stuff. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I never thought that, being a personal trainer or even the thought of being an online coach was an option at the time. And I guess a bit of a traditional mindset, I thought, I got to get a stable job and get into the finance side of things and, do the 9 to 5 and all that. So, but I guess over the years, with the growth of Flex Success and obviously my passion with bodybuilding and helping people and a lot of general population and improving body composition and helping other people to achieve their goals. And then I started to realize that I guess also give myself the confidence and just bet on myself and believe in myself and to give it a crack, and like what we just spoke about just before we started recording that, it's now I really, really appreciate my life and really grateful to have the opportunity to do what I love, and I'm sure you can share that as well. Like you said, you've had your fair share of doing the job that wasn't really for you, you didn't really enjoy, and now you get to do what you love, and then I know it sounds pretty cliche, but you don't feel like you're working because you kind of love what you do and all this sort of stuff. And I guess being able to see the changes in your clients and just being able to, I guess, having a positive impact on other people's life, which I never thought I was good enough to do. Do you know what I mean? Because you never really thought, what was I meant to do in life and things like that. I know it sounds like really hippie-ish or whatever, but it's like as you go and now looking back, I'm like, holy shit, I guess I'm doing it now, And then in the last couple of years, I transitioned from just doing that as part-time to now, being a full-time coach at Flex Success. So sorry, I just kind of ramble on a little bit, but that's kind of like a bit of a background story for myself. And I'm sure there's a lot that you can relate to as well. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this as well. So
yeah, no, that's good, Alan. Please ramble away. This is what it's about. This is long form content, and whatever comes to mind, we want to talk about it. And I think it helps the listeners because what you just talked about is really relatable. I think a lot of us go through those feelings, those experiences. For example, let's look at imposter syndrome. You mentioned you didn't feel, I think, and we've all been there, good enough. Am I good enough? Am I enough? Have I got the skill set to do X, Y, whatever it might be? And that is normal. It's something that now, after speaking to a lot of peers in the industry, whether, out of the industry as well, people who are successful, I think it is a bit of a trend. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's sort of like an awareness. I think that's the difference between people who excel, because you are always invested in learning and growing, because in the back of your mind, you have to be on top of your game. And hey, if that helps you excel even further, to use the maxim, aim for the moon, land in the stars, that it isn't so bad, right? But it is good to touch base on those things and know that, you know, who are the people behind the faces? You know, like yourself, you were someone just like anyone else. You started off, perhaps you weren't doing what you love, but now you are. And I think that inspires people. And it's good for people to hear that, because I think the way social media presents itself these days, or when people look at these uber successful people or people just doing what they love, we have the general public who think, oh, I could never do that. But if they actually hear the journey and they hear the raw truth of, this is where I started, this is what it actually took, I think that gives people the belief, and because they can unpack it. And I know that was a big part of my journey, to look at, for example, people I looked up to and that inspired me, and not to try and replicate, but to understand, oh, they weren't just born, you know, jacked and ripped and super knowledgeable. Like, we all start somewhere regardless of the industry. So no, I think that's really good, Alan, and please continue to share whatever comes to mind. Now, we talked about, you know, off camera, I really wanted to look at, I know you're big on psychology like myself, and we really wanted to delve into your comp prep and unpack that. So I'd really like to talk about, maybe let's start off with like, when you start a comp prep, like perhaps your background in competing, like obviously you've competed before, and then maybe let's go step by step, get some key takeaways. I'd really love to sort of do like a zoom in on everything that happens between, hey, I'm starting a comp prep, this is the competitions I'm going to do, the federations, the dates. Like, let's talk about everything that we can and give some key takeaways for the listeners, because I think a lot of people don't understand, once again, what is involved, the commitment, the discipline, the dedication that is required to step on a stage and look, you know, respectable, and then obviously to look elite. So perhaps let's start there with your background in competing and how it all went this time.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to competing in bodybuilding, it goes back to 2013 for me. So there was my first ever show. You know, I was 23 at the time when I did my first show, and I guess that was kind of like just before, you know, the social media, the IG, and all this stuff started popping out with all the Instagram fitness, right? So back then, you know, for natural athletes, there was IMBA back then. It was available, and all the people that sort of was following, you know, like Nathan Wallace was a, you know, huge influence of mine. You know, back then he was the man. You know, he was killing everything. So that was kind of like the goal that I was strive to achieve, right? And I started off training, I guess, or getting into bodybuilding by, I don't want to say by accident, but I started lifting weights in the gym because I wanted to get a little bit stronger and improve my athletic performance for basketball. But obviously, being this short, I soon realized that, you know, I was never gifted enough to play basketball. But obviously, as I was training in the gym, so, but, you know, as you start training in the gym, and it's like, oh, you know, and you started responding pretty well when then people start noticing, you know, I guess the progress, things like that. But I guess my love from that really coming from just getting stronger and building strength and seeing the progress, the performance in the gym and all the stuff. And obviously your body changes as well. Then I started getting to bodybuilding a little bit. I started buying, like, you know, Flex magazines, you know. So I going from like buying like basketball magazines to like Flex magazines or Muscle and Fitness and things like that. I'm sure you would, you know, you would have seen those magazines back in the days, and then, you know, obviously with all the information regarding nutrition and training. And that's pretty much what I was doing, man. You know, like the typical, you know, chest Monday, back Tuesday, shoulders on Thursday, legs on Friday. And you have your oatmeal and 6 boiled eggs in the morning. It has to be boiled because you can't fry it, you know what I mean? So, and that's because that's what Ronnie Coleman ate, right? So that's, if I want to look like that, I gotta eat that. So that's kind of like how I get started. But obviously, you know, you got results, but, you know, probably not the most optimal now looking back. But, you know, it helped me progress and all the rest of it. And then a few years in, and then I started, I guess, develop a bit more interest into like, okay, surely there's a better way of doing things, right? You know, because even on the magazines, it was giving you recommending you the type of foods they wouldn't even have available, like in Australia. Like, I remember like, because he was eating like grits and things like that, which you can't even buy in Australia. I was like, where am I going to get this? So then I started to develop interest into like, I guess figuring out there's just a better way to do things. And also back in, at that time, I actually got in touch with, guys like Damon Hayhow, back in the old Biologic Labs, all those guys, Damon Hayhow, Nathan Wallace and all those boys. That's where I kind of learned like how to train hard, what hard training truly is. And that definitely had a huge impact on, I guess, early on with my bodybuilding career, if you will, and just see how dedicated they are, with everything they do. Then I developed my own interest in researching and things like that. Then, they start looking up to bodybuilding.com and, get all the information online. And it's kind of just when I came across information from like Lane and things like that when it comes to like, be more of a flexible dieting approach, or if you feature macro, if you will. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense for me, you know what I mean? And then, kind of dive into to more of a research side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep going.
Yeah, carry on, bro. I'm just going to get into a better location, but I'm listening.
No worries. But yeah, so, and then, dive into the more of a researching, like how to, I guess, optimize my training and nutrition, right? And then when I decided to, I can't even remember when I decided to compete, but I just like, you know what, I'm just going to start cutting and, maybe we'll see how we go. And then I started, obviously making adjustments to my own training. So I prepped myself for my first comp and also prepped a friend at a time as well for, he was teenage at the time. We both trained at the same gym. So I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And he wanted to do it as well. So, all right, let's do it. So I guess that's kind of when, that sparked a little bit of that coaching side of things just by helping other people, then I started to realize that, I'm doing more and more research because I want to find better ways to help him get better results. I guess that's kind of where like, that interest in coaching and helping other people sort of comes in now looking back. And and then did my first show. Did okay. So I think I came second in novice class, but I actually won the open class that year. But I didn't do nationals or anything like that. Then obviously experienced the whole post-comp binges and things like that, the first ever time competing. And it was, at the time I didn't realize, like now looking back, obviously I can see, like I understand the whys, all the physiological and psychological changes. But at the time, you just like, you look at food as reward and post-comp. It's like, that's what everyone's doing. You got to do the whole rebound thing, right? It's how you can grow. But when you ate so much that you you feel sick and you couldn't even walk. That was terrible, man. It was terrible. So that's 2013. And then pretty much from there, I guess the love for bodybuilding just really, really kicked off. And then 2 years off season and did a bit of powerlifting. So I did a powerlifting comp as well, just to keep myself motivated during that off season. And then did another show in 2015. So I did 3 shows in 2015. So I did I actually did the season 8 that year. So I took a year and a half off, and I did season 8 2015. I did the Brisbane Classic. And so I became second in my open class. And then I won the over 77 class. I think that's the first time they had the weight class as well, or the year before. And then also I did the tropics as well. So I went up to Townsville and then did so won the over 77, won my open class as well, and missed out on the overall. And then went into nationals, and I came second in nationals. And also, I also prepped another friend who is now my best friend, Harris, for his first ever show as well. So I guess, so you can kind of see that now, like, kind of helping friends and things like that. That's kind of how I started off. And then at the time I was working for, I was managing a supplement store in Brisbane. So I was for Nutrition Warehouse, and also helped a few guys at work just with their nutrition and things like that, just helping them changing their body composition and all that sort of stuff, just with the knowledge that I have, right? So it was purely from like I love doing it. So it wasn't like a proper coaching or anything like that. Just be like, hey, you know, can you help me out? It's like, cool, you know, this is what we can do, blah, blah, blah. And then trying to teach them how to track their food and how to periodize their training, all the basic stuff, right? And then, yeah, so I guess, and then Harris did really well. He won the juniors in Townsville, in Brisbane. And then that's 2015 season. And then a couple of years later, because I really want to win the open class and win it overall. So there was a goal that I set for myself after the 2015 season, after just missing out. Then, yeah, so I achieved that in 2017. And I believe that's when I first met you, because I remember coming off stage.
I was there.
Yeah, coming off stage in Queensland, I think was taking some photos for like a backstage photos. And then you came up to me and congratulated me and had a good conversation. It was like I really appreciate it, man. And that's why I still remember that, you know, like, you know, I think people that go out of their way to show support and things like that, it's really cool. Like, you know, because as you know, in this industry, you know, you don't really see that often these days.
No,
especially with social media. So it was super refreshing, man. And that's why I still remember. And so I really appreciate it. Yeah, so 2017 was a really good season. So I did actually came over here to Western Australia, competed so I won the overalls, won the open class and the weight class, and then I went to Townsville, and then I came second to Damon in the weight class, and then won the open class. So obviously Damon Forrest, he won the overalls that year, and then went to Queensland, and then I won the weight class, open class, and the overall there, and then went to nationals. I came third in the open class, and so there was like, okay, after getting off stage there, that was a goal I set for myself for this season, which was to win the nationals, right? And also at the time, because I already started like coaching part time with Flex Success, so I got on board with Dean and Lizzie pretty much after a few months after I finished off my 2015 season. And it was at a time when they started building Flex Success and then getting more and more interest of people, because we were all doing it part-time at the time, because Lizzie was a personal trainer, Dean was an area manager for Nutrition Warehouse. So we're just kind of see, you know, what this, you know, because we didn't know what this was going to become. So they gave me an opportunity, which I'm, you know, super grateful for, and everything they've done for me. And yeah, so I started coaching a few people, and for 2017 season, I actually had 3 guys. I prepped 3 guys and also competed alongside them for the 2017 season. So I had Garrick, who was a teenager at the time, and also James, who won so Garrick won the Teenage Mr. Australia, and James won the Junior Mr. Australia, and Harris actually won his open class at the nationals as well. So those three boys, and also myself, and also I also had Ben, who won the men's physique open class in, like, it was called Bris Vegas show, I think.
Yeah.
So I prepped 4 guys for that for that season. Also, obviously myself competing as well. And yeah, and then fast forward to this season, obviously the goal was to win nationals. But as you know, the level of competition has been just getting harder and harder every year. So I knew it was going to be tough, but yeah, very, very lucky. So I did a few shows this season, and yeah, managed to walk away with the national title, I guess. Yeah, so achieved my goal. Now looking back at that's actually pretty cool, like how the progress and things like that. But yeah, so won the open class at the nationals, and then got my pro card there, and then went into the world championship in Melbourne, and then did the pro show, and then came 5th in the pro show. So obviously Brendan won a show, and Damon came 2nd, and yeah, so it's pretty cool. So that's kind of like the journey for myself so far, man, in the competitive side of things. So
and what a journey it's been, and I'm sure the next goal will be to, you know, win a pro show now, right? And build on that.
Oh man, that would be that'll be the goal, man. Like, so I'm actually thinking of I am going to compete next year. So pretty much I think 40 weeks away. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it's not long when you break it down into weeks, is it?
Yeah, I guess because my usually I would say, I would take like 2 to 3 years off, because obviously, as you know, as a natural bodybuilder, to make that proper progression in the off season, it takes a decent amount of time and effort and everything, right?
Oh yeah.
Everything has to be on point, not just that 20 weeks that you prep. It's everything leading up to that point.
Correct.
I guess for me now, obviously, so I'm 29 at the moment. So I guess I'm looking at like, okay, now I'm loving this. I have the opportunity to do this now. Might as well make the most out of it, because who knows, 3 years off season can turn into like 5 or 6 or never. So I'm like, well, while I can, and while I have the lifestyle to support me doing this, that's just keep it going. So like, I understand, probably won't be able to make as much progress as I'd like, but yeah, I'm just really loving it at the moment. So just gonna go. So see how it goes. Plus, the World Championship is in Vegas next year, so I guess that gives you a little bit extra incentive to do that. So
100%, brother. That's it, man. Look, at the end of the day, if you've got your heart and your mind set on something, then you've got to do it. And at the end of the day, sometimes I think at the advanced level where you're at now, you might not get a different stage weight, but it might be the difference of I'm the same stage weight, but I have maintained more lean mass and my conditioning is better, and I think listening to a lot of the top guys, you look like Alberto Nunez, etc., and sometimes they're even lighter when they compete, but they look bigger because they've maintained more muscle mass, and they've come in more well conditioned. So I think there's a fine art there as well. But before we get into more of the specifics, I think I just want to draw a couple of trends from what you were saying there. And I think the first one, Alan, is the underlying theme of consistency and the discipline and the persistence that you've had. I think a lot of people who are looking to compete, one of the main misconceptions is, and we all want to, I know it was a goal of mine and it should be a goal of everyone's, is you want to do the best, right? But people come in first season, they want their pro card. Some people get it deservingly or not. That's another conversation. But it shouldn't just be about that. It should be about other things. You still want to aim high, but you look at, for example, how many times you've competed, and we'll go into how difficult it can be to get into this comp prep stakes. I don't think people quite realize what shredded glutes actually means for the old mental side of things and the physical. But you've persisted, you've had a goal, you're obviously passionate about it. It's great to see the evolution. I think another key takeaway is you started to take on, and I know Harris, and actually, a side note, Aaron Henderson, a good friend of mine who competed in 2017. He was the guy who put me sort of onto you in terms of map. He's like, he was competing at the time, and I'm sort of at Hold Your Own. We're getting to know each other. He's like, dude, you got to check out this guy, Harrison Allen. And it wasn't just the conditioning. He was talking about, because we obviously really connected. Hold Your Own's a small community, good people, and he's like, these guys are really good guys, man. Like, you got to meet them. And that's kind of like what put you on the radar, and Harris, and he's like, man, these guys are just real genuine, like they're the real deal. So that was pretty cool, man. And obviously, like, going up there and supporting the guys and then seeing you and meeting you was pretty inspirational. But back to that point, like, you've started coaching your friends. That's kind of how it starts, right? You get the experience, you help them, they get good results too. You're leading by example at the same time, and there's this constant progression up to obviously then working within the team, which is now Flex Success, very successful group of coaches, and you're doing what you love full time. So I think that's just really good to highlight, just for the listeners, so they can kind of say, oh, it wasn't just you flicked a switch and all of a sudden you're full-time comp prep coach. It's you lived and you breathed it, and you slowly sort of added that on over time and evolved with it. So that's really inspirational, and congratulations again, Alan. I mean, if you look at that consistent trend, you've set a goal and you've nailed it every time. And even if you didn't, you would have learned something. So, I mean, if you keep following this trend, man, I think, you'll win a pro show. It's just a matter of time, right? And a lot of people drop out. They don't have that relentless consistency. And half the time, sometimes it's the last man standing wins, right? If you turn up every single time and you just get a little bit better, you're gonna achieve success. So no, I'm excited to see what the future will bring and what you bring to the stage as well, my friend. Now, in terms of more logistics, now let's talk about, you mentioned earlier as well, Great stuff, by the way. Again, for the listeners, I think a lot of the younger folk, you know, we picked up that bodybuilding magazine. I know the first time I did the 5-day bro split, hey, it worked, right? It was good. It was like volume. I was training muscle groups multiple times for the first time. You was following that diet plan. I'd be like, shit, I got to have the oats. I got to eat 6 times a day. I got to get the protein. So let's talk about like where your mindset is now and your approach to setting up a comp prep. So, you know, you've got this comp prep now in 40 weeks. What is your plan? How do you attack it? How do you set this up?
Yeah. I guess before we get into that, you just touch upon something that's really, really interesting. And I think because there's so much information now and available to us now, and, you know, as you know, there's so many more great evidence-based coaches and everyone's putting out great information like yourself, right? And going back to like the broad speak, you know, how we just train 5 days a week and we got results and just 600 a day. Whilst I see the way I look at it is, I think almost there's always extremes to both sides, right? I think nowadays there is, I don't know if you see this as well, there is a trend of like people who, I guess, getting too analytical with or quantifying things, or get too stuck up with the numbers and all the research and everything, as opposed to just getting in there and
getting it done.
Sometimes just getting in there and getting it done, and just lifting weights and eating food. Like, obviously, you know, it's not as simple as that, but like, I think there's almost too much of, I guess the world will be having too much knowledge or information available to us but not actually getting in the gym and getting the basic work done and just learning how to train hard. And I think that's one thing that you can't really teach through research paper, if you will. But then obviously, you know, there's the other side where the old school mindset, where it's not being progressive enough and keeping up with the information and doing the things that, you know, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on a physiological side of things, you know, from what we understand now. So I guess kind of like having that little bit of balance. And I guess this ties into what we're going to talk about here, which is setting up the comp prep or, you know, improvement season leading into comp prep and everything. I think the way I look at it now, and obviously working with clients and everything, like, to me, the most important thing is to understand that, like, obviously for most of us, we're doing this we're not doing this to make a living, you know, as far as bodybuilding goes. Even as coaches, like, obviously, you know, your job is to help other people get results, not by you being a better bodybuilder. Obviously, it will help, I suppose, on the marketing side of things, but at the end of the day, it's you doing your job. So I guess it's still a hobby or a personal interest and sport at the end of the day. So if you don't really have the love for it, like, you won't be able to, you know, like you said, you know, compete year after, you know, every few years and making that constant progress, because and all the rest of it.
Oh,
still there?
I lost you, but I've got you back.
Okay, cool.
Now we're good. I don't know, a bit of a glitch, but hang on a sec. No, we're all good. Continue on. I got you said you were up to consistent progress. This is the last thing I got.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, you know, making that constant progress, it takes a lot of, you know, you really have to have the love and passion for it, right? That's kind of what you said about, like, you know, you know, in the last 6 years or 6 years of competitive seasons, you know, year after year, putting the work and getting up on stage and go through everything else, while it's making sure, you know, life is going towards or progressing in a certain direction as well, not just focusing on bodybuilding because it doesn't pay the bills, right? So I think for majority of people wanting to compete and obviously understand that, you know, taking care of their life outside of training and, you know, dieting or the rest of it, it's probably the most important thing. Managing your relationships, managing your work, and all the rest of it. Like, so lifestyle and behavior is something that I really, really focus on in setting someone up or myself into the contest prep. Because, and also obviously the psychological side of things, because we all know people who sacrificed everything, if you will, like, do you know what I mean? Like, getting to the stage and like, obviously, it's not for me to judge their choices or whatever, but, we all know someone that, sacrifice everything, get to the stage, and then they lost relationships, lost friendships, they lost their job. And then for what? Like, even if you place first, even if you get that, and then what? You wake up the next day, you're still the same person, and everyone else sees you as the same person, just who happened to compete over the weekend. And then that's, probably not the best thing for a lot of people. So that's kind of like the first conversation I will have with someone, coming on board or wanting to compete, or even for myself, like making sure I setting up my lifestyle, that I taking care of business outside of, my training and nutrition and all the rest of it. So that way, I can do this while everything else is going, towards the right direction, or the direction that it should. Because like you said, comp prep is not easy, right? Because if you think about it fundamentally, and I think this is the part where a lot of people, or in this, I guess, small world of fitness industry, that people like to think like, because we are bodybuilders, so our physiology works just different than the rest of the human being, but it doesn't, because at the end of the day, your body doesn't really care that you're trying to get up on stage and wear, posing trunks and covering spray tan, right? Because when you have a proper linked stage ready physique, like proper striated glutes, in that moment, if you look inside and how your body's feeling, it's all it cares about. Holy shit, there's literally no spare energy available. This person is gonna die soon. That explains all the physiological and psychological adaptations and all the changes that we experience, right? That's why you feel tired all the time. That's why, the reality is your testosterone will drop, and that's why you have no energy. That's why you get extra emotional and you're stressed out all the time, Yeah. That explains all of that, because all your body cares about is, holy shit, let's get this person to put some body fat back on, otherwise it's gonna die. So fundamentally, that's what's happening, right? So it's that's why the process of getting there gets harder and harder and harder. So it's not as simple as, okay, I'll just follow my diet and my nutrition. Also, how to manage everything really. If you are going to feel tired and you are going to be a little bit more emotional. So how do you do your job? And then let's say if you have an office job, how do you make sure that you get the work done? And how do you manage your relationship? How do you manage your friendship? Because to everyone else, they can't understand how you're feeling. So they're going to see you as the same person, except you're probably 10 kilo lighter or 20 kilo lighter, whatever. So they're going to see you as the same person. But now all of a sudden, if you become an asshole, or you become super lazy and treat people like shit, then you can't use bodybuilding as an excuse for that. Like, they're going to see you and holy shit, he's a fucking asshole. So when the competition finishes, when you go back to normal, and then it's probably a little bit too late to apologize. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially if you have really ruined the friendships there, right? So making people understand this, and also learning how to manage these things, that's probably the most important thing to me. And I think most people should really look into that before they even consider the calories and macros and all that sort of stuff. Because all those numbers and all those, on the spreadsheets and all those quantifiable data, those to me are the easy stuff. How to manage all this is the most important thing, because if you can't manage this, it's going to have a massive impact on your ability to train or even follow through nutrition. Because if you stress out all the time and worrying about fighting with your friends or not getting the work done, you have no money, all the rest of it, you won't be able to focus on your training. You won't be able to focus on your nutrition. Then you're probably going to go binge a few times, going out off your plane, and get extra emotional and all the rest of it there. So, and obviously managing stress and sleep is a huge part of getting into that contest, getting contest ready as well. So that's why I think managing the lifestyle and making sure your mindset understand, okay, this is what I'm about to take on. And let's be honest, it's not a healthy state to be in, to have that striated glutes or, proper stage ready physique, but it's what's required. for this competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's kind of things I look at. So usually, you know, I'll just, I guess, use that examples. If someone coming on board, if they go through prep, and it's to be the same approach as how I approach myself, is I like to break up the prep into different blocks, kind of like, you know, how we would periodize our nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So usually I would prefer to start someone from at least, if it's the first time someone compete, I'd like to spend at least 24 to 30 weeks with them throughout the whole prep, from, you know, start to when they enter their first show. So that's, you know, well over 6 months, right? But the reason for that is obviously, you know, to making sure that we are, you know, when it comes to that physiological side of things, you know, making sure we keeping the rate of loss at a minimum, or so that our ability to maintain lean tissue will be a little bit better. But then obviously I'll break up that 30 weeks into like different blocks, right? Because if you tell someone, hey, you're going to be dieting for the next 30 weeks, you're like, holy shit. You know, if they haven't even dieted for 6 weeks in the past, and you can't really tell someone that. But where it's just like, okay, this is what we're going to do for the next 6 to 8 weeks. All right. This is the goals we're going to achieve. So obviously at the start of the prep, the initial block, what I focus on is just building good habits and lifestyles, right? For example, okay, let's start measuring your output every day, making sure you hit a certain step targets, making sure then with the nutrition side of things, that's obviously follow a prescribed nutrition plan, and also teaching you how to manage your nutrition, how you can swap foods and things like that, so you can track your macros and give you all the education, all the tools that you can have, so that way you can manage your nutrition later on. Then also training side of things, you know, obviously getting used to exercise selections and, you know, building up the intensity and volume, just so you understand this is what training will be like. And obviously as we go, we're going to make some changes. But the most important thing is just, I guess, building some good habits and lifestyle. For example, aiming to have, you know, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. So that we're every day kind of like ticking off boxes, right? And there's one thing I really like to focus on is making sure, give yourself like a daily checklist, just like you would, you know, with your job and everything else. You have a list of things that you got to get done each day, each week, and just do that. Because once you can do that, after 6 to 8 weeks, it just becomes something that you do every day. Then it will set yourself in a good position where later on it's so much easier, because you already had all this lifestyle and behavior and habits built. So that's kind of like the first block. And then by doing that, for most people, you're going to see some good body composition changes, right? Then we say, okay, this is the goal that we have achieved in the 6 to 8 weeks. Done. Now let's move on. Let's take things a little bit more serious and making a little bit more changes. So that's kind of like how I would like to, I guess, set up the prep. Then, you know, then the second block, you're looking at like maybe anywhere from 16 to 20 weeks out, right? Mm-hmm. It's where things can get a little bit more serious. You probably like, you know, should be less than 10 kilos above from your stage weight. And then, but obviously still carrying a little bit of body fat but training should be in a really good position now. So, you know, you should build up a good habits with your nutrition as well. So now we can really focus on, you know, driving the training intensity and making some really good performance goals. So that's usually what I'll focus on in the second block. So focus on the performance goals and let the nutrition side of things just take care of yourself. And then another 6 to 8 weeks of that, then you're looking at, okay, now we're like 8 weeks out. So the goal just basically, you know, take the last 4 to 5 kilos off to get as lean as possible. But the good thing is you have all this lifestyle and behavior and habits built leading up to that point. It just comes down to you executing and obviously having a strong enough mindset to, you know, for when you feel like completely shit, you still have to get up and, you know, make sure you stay active and keep pushing the training, making sure your intensity is on point so you can hold on to, you know, as much lean tissue as possible. And obviously, you know, I guess fighting through the hunger and all the psychological changes that you will experience in the last little bit of prep. And I guess as far as the actual nutrition strategies, I also like to break up those different blocks with like a diet break and also like a training deload as well. So like, so I guess obviously the physiological benefits that we can see, there's still more research to come out as far as whether it's actually doing what we think it's doing. But I definitely see, if nothing else, for the psychological side of things, it's great for people to be okay. let's push out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Then we can have a break. You're gonna eat more food, a lot more carbs, give you a little bit more flexibility to implement different things. Perhaps you may have some social events that you can attend and then not feel like you have to, you know, be that person that bring their own container or things like that, you know. And then training deload, just give yourself a bit of a break as well. So you kind of like, you know, push for 6 to 8 weeks or 6 to 10 weeks, sorry. Have a little bit of a break. All right, now let's focus on a new goal for the next 6 to 10 weeks. Then we'll have another break. And now we pretty much approach the last little bit. And then now you look at, holy shit, 20 weeks is done. Last 10 weeks, let's go, you know. So this is kind of how I like to break out the prep. And also, I guess, if you want to go into a little bit more detail, I also implement like regular refeeds in each block as well as we go. And usually I'll implement more frequent refeeds as we get leaner and leaner. Or so, for example, the first block will usually be like maybe 6 low days, 1 high days. And the second block will be like 5 low days, 2 back-to-back refeeds. And the third block will be like 4 low days and 3 back-to-back refeeds. And again, that goes back to like saying, you know, the concept of diet breaks and things like that, which is to obviously try to slow down those negative adaptation that comes with dieting and or getting stage ready, right? Because the reality is when we get further and further away from your body weight, body fat set point, it's going to get harder. And then that's all those adaptation that we experience, like, you know, the physiological changes and things like that, and psychological changes as well that we just mentioned before, right? You feel tired, you feel lethargic, you know, low libido and training intensity down, and you feel stressed out all the time. So obviously these are all, you know, I guess I look at that as like a necessary adaptation or mechanism our body has, which is amazing if you think about it, because all these things are to stop us from either expending more calories or more energy or increasing our energy intake, right? That's why your hunger level goes up and your satiety level goes down, because your body's signaling you to eat some food and put some fat back on. And that's why I feel tired. Or your NEAT goes down because your body is trying to stop you from moving and burning more energy. So what I found that more frequent refeed tends to, first of all, like if nothing on the physiological side of things, I found that having those low high days, and I'm sure there's something that you would have implemented with Brendan as well, is that psychologically it's great, you know, knowing that, okay, I only need to diet 4 days a week and then have 3 high days. I think that also improves adherence. And if I can say to someone, say 6 weeks, I say, hey, you know, for the next 6 weeks, all you need to do is 24 days of dieting and the rest are refeeds. I think it makes it a little bit easier for them to understand, okay, just 24 days and every day will go by quick. And also having those regular high days also allow me to sort of see how their body looks after, you know, 1 high carb day, 2nd high carb day, the 3rd high carb day, and how their body looks. Then it will help me in basically structuring their peak week for their first show. And I'll usually line up the days. For example, the last day of the refeed will be on the same day as the contest day, which will usually be like a Saturday or Sunday. Then when it comes to peak week time, I have all the data and everything available to me, so I know exactly how the person is going to respond, or, you know, as close as how, like, what we can get, because the person has been used to, you know, having certain amount of carbohydrate, you know, then I know if I stick to around that range, I should be able to elicit the look that I want on stage. So yeah, that's kind of how I break things down. So basically push for 6 to 10 weeks. That's first block. Have a diet break and a deload with training. Move into the second block with different goals. Then it's kind of like building layer by layer by layer. And then obviously, you know, psychological side of things, making sure, you know, each block we work on things that we need to take care of. And obviously, you know, I think that really helps, like I say, you know, building that lifestyle and behavior and habits really help you see yourself in a good position later on, as opposed to just fight straighting and then expect someone to stick to that for 30 weeks. Like, obviously, you know, there are people that can definitely do that. But again, like I say, you know, for majority of people, and from what I have seen is, you know, it's a little bit unrealistic. And probably not as optimal, especially when you're factoring, like, you know, the things outside of training and nutrition. So
Yeah, no, that's Alan. There's a lot of great key points to unpack there, and I just want to sort of nuance a couple of things and reiterate them to a degree of what you mentioned for the listeners, because really phenomenal stuff, Alan. Thank you for sharing, and the detail is great. And this is what we want. Really want to sort of define it, because I feel like a lot of the time so let's start at your first point, right? You made a point of, which I really agree with, about there's a lot of trainers now where it's almost you're too evidence-based or you're too sort of ignorant, right? And yeah. I couldn't agree more, my friend. I really love that you brought that up, because again, it's about finding a balance. There's not really a right or wrong, because again, everyone's different. But yes, you've got to acknowledge the science, because we know that the formulas work. You know, you can't really argue with physics, progressive overload and volume, or energy balance and all those things. But at the same time, sometimes things don't work as they do in the textbooks, as you know, sometimes based on experience. And again, it's having this evidence and anecdotal approach all the time, right? This beautiful blend between experience and then obviously education as well. We see a lot of the time, I think there's some great examples like yourself of people who are, look, let's get in, let's train hard, but let's train smart as well. But sometimes, like you said, let's not overthink it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The basics are the best, right? They always work. A lot of the time you can procrastinate. You're trying to figure out the numbers. You're trying to figure out the way around it. Sometimes it's like, you know what, man, just get in there, lift that barbell, execute that technique, man, and get that food down and get your ass into bed, and you're going to grow. I think Doug Miller, probably one of the greatest examples of that. Very, very much a bro in the eyes of a lot of people. Yes, perhaps genetically gifted, but there's a lot of guys out there like that as well. Brandon included, Nathan Wallace. It's like, man, these guys are evidence-based, but fuck, man, these guys train hard. Yeah. And like you said, I think sometimes when you train with these people or alongside these people, you train with the likes of Damon or whatever it is, you start to realize how much effort is involved. And that's something that really hit me after training with more advanced lifters over the years. I'm like, okay, it's not about me killing myself, but shit, like if I'm going to get to a level that is above average, man, I've got to be coming in the gym and I've got to be, putting it in, man. I got to be working out, and it's going to be a bit sadistic and it's going to hurt, because at the end of the day, if you want the body to adapt and change, you've got to apply some stress and stimulus. And I think
exactly
sometimes the perception of that is outweighed, right? It's almost like I'm hurting. And again, we could talk about pain science. That's another facet in itself, but it's like, yeah, but how much, we use the RPE, the rate of perceived exertion, to try and gauge that. But are you really hitting, or have you got more? And then sometimes it takes to train with a more advanced athlete to go, do you know what? I thought I was working at a 10. I was probably working at an 8. I'm not completely destroyed. I'm not being stupid. I'm not getting injured. But man, you know what? I've got a little bit more there that I can give every time. And just walking that up over the years to a point where then you are, it's not about going from 0 to 100. That's stupid. But again, you've got to lift that intensity. If you want to put more muscle on, you got to eat more food. You got to be accumulating more volume. So no, first point I wanted to address, phenomenal. Really want to get that across. So listeners, please take note of that one. And behavior and lifestyle, again, Alan, absolutely love it. We don't talk about this enough. You mentioned how for other people, they don't know, they can't relate, and they shouldn't have to. We're bodybuilding. Okay, so everyone else has got to stop and adapt to us. Well, no, this is our choice. This is our commitment.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that a few practitioners are now really touching base on, in terms of how do you manage that? How do you manage your relationships? How do you manage your job? How do you manage your day-to-day activities? Because as you rightly said, when you understand, and perhaps I think when you educate your clients, when you take them on board, I think you sort of set these expectations, which is really, really clever. And you sort of say to people, look, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do it. This is why, and this is how. If you give someone okay, well, at least I know why I'm doing this and why I'm going to feel this way, it gives people purpose, understanding, and improves adherence. So I really love that you address that first, because it is the most important factor. It doesn't get talked about enough. Most people, when you say behavior and lifestyle, they're like, what do you mean? But again, it's about building those habits, looking at those behaviors, because ultimately that's what's going to set up a successful contest preparation or a building phase or whatever it is. And then, as you said, just layering that in and breaking it down. I think one more point just to highlight it before we move on is you said, when you do break it down, it's a lot more manageable, whether that's, the total competition preparation period, whether that's the nutrition in terms of here's the dieting phases, here's the refeed phases. It's always better to really go, hey, you know what, like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? That the old analogy, it's about, okay, well, especially if someone's new, you tell them, hey, we're going to diet for 6 months. People are like, what the hell? Like, again, define it, build a plan and go, hey, look, but we're going to break it down. And so they've got these little phases to focus on. And then before you know it, as we all know, for everyone competed who's listening, it's like, wow, that went really fast. There was periods where it felt really slow, because obviously when you're dieting, you're like, how am I going to go another 6 weeks like this? But then when you've got those refeed days to look forward to, again, physiologically, we're still looking into it, but psychologically, we know that it improves adherence. And again, it's that light at the end of the tunnel, like, shit, at least on these days, I've got a little bit more food I can just get through, right? So it gives you that sort of motivation every time.
Yeah.
And then taking care of business in the gym becomes, a bit of a standardization, because ultimately, as you said, we are controllably starving ourselves close to death, and fight or flight response, is really kicking in. So again, that's why we have all of these adaptations, which, maybe, the byproduct of negative energy availability. But as you said, let's look at it as, wow, this is quite amazing that the body can shut down these systems. Now, some people argue it's pretty sick and sadistic, and hey, it's not for everybody, but, we do this for a reason. And there can be a beautiful bit of, I think, serenity in that time where it's very peaceful, because is only a couple of things that are ever on your mind. So sometimes you get to a space where there's nothing else going on, and you can really sort of be with your own thoughts, which again is a bit more spiritual, but I think that's a beautiful phase of comp prep if you embrace it, and something that you get better at over time, which I think is another thing to highlight. But so sort of to springboard off this point, Alan, so we've talked about how you kind of set that up and what you do for clients and what you do yourself. What are some of do you think if you could go back and speak to yourself when you first started comp prep, what are the main key things, if you just had 5 minutes to chat to yourself, that you'd really sort of highlight and say, hey, here's the things that you could probably do a little bit better right now, and here's the things I would avoid?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. For the number one thing I would definitely change, and even up until this point, this is probably the first time I'm actually applying this to myself as well. In the past, and I think this is part of the reason why I didn't make as much progress as I could have, is I was too much of even though I wasn't a competitive powerlifter per se, but pretty much in the previous off season, I was focused on, okay, you know what, if my squat, bench, and deadlift just go up, then I'm sweet, so I wasn't really taking care of a lot of the getting the volume, or utilize various exercise to target different muscle groups that I should bring up, for example, my arms especially. But I was just like, you know what, if I get a big bench, biggest squat, and biggest deadlift, I'll be sweet. But now, obviously, understanding that, sometimes the other variables then things like neural adaptation and skill acquisition that can allow you to put on 20 to 30 kilos on your bench, squat, and deadlift just by getting more efficient in those movements. But we know you definitely haven't put on much lean tissue at all. So being able to, I guess, be more of a bodybuilder and actually getting into volume and just getting stronger across various rep ranges and getting, the adequate amount of volume through different body parts that I need to bring up. I guess that's the part where being more of an, artist, if you will, like how you structure your training and all the rest of it, obviously following the fundamentals of progressive overload, exercise selection, and all the rest of it, to make proper progression in the off season, as opposed to only focusing on squat, bench, and deadlift, which is what I did for 2 to 3 off seasons. Obviously I got the results out of that, but probably wasted 6 to 10 months of not actually utilizing those times to put on some quality tissue on the body parts that I needed to bring up. So that's definitely one thing I would say to myself to change. But I guess, you know, it's hard to get rid of that mindset of like, you know, there's nothing like pulling a PB, right? So you know, but now I'm learning. So now I'm like actually applying that this off season. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good one, Alan. I think even sometimes we know it makes sense on paper, but it seems weird if you're lifting less absolute like intensity weight on the bar to sacrifice that, but then to lift more volume. So it's like, shit, like I used to walk in and pull like 220, 250, whatever, and on a deadlift, so whatever it might be. But then you drop back, you know, 20%, 30% less than that. But you're like, shit, but hey, I'm doing more reps and sets. And then I've got my other accessory movements. The joints are not as beat up. You know, you're actually accumulating more volume, but still in the back of your mind, it's a bit weird. And I think on the opposite side of that, we get a lot of athletes who are a bit bedazzled, right? I mean, look, the big lifts are key to build those foundations, but ultimately at some point, if you're lifting, you know, triples, doubles, and singles, you're not really going to be adding lean mass unless you've got a lot of other, you know, volume in there. And even if you have, you know, those things are going to take its toll on your central nervous system. So are you then effectively hindering your ability to accumulate or acclimate volume? So I think that's really good. That's a bit of a realization I've had over the past 6 months too. So I really resonate with that one and a key point for sure. Now, in terms of working with clients, how do you approach lack of adherence, pushbacks, or when clients are, you know, in tough or difficult times, perhaps they're going to fall off the wagon? Does this even happen? How do you deal with that? What are some of the systems and processes and you know, tools that you apply to help people sort of, you know, get back on or stick with it?
Man, this is probably like my passionate topic, man. It's so interesting, and that is really the art of coaching, right? You know, and obviously, especially through the online space, you know, like to me, it's like, you know, it's about finding. It's not just about like giving someone's numbers and say, hey, you know, here's your macros and here's your training, and you know, I'll talk to you next week.
It doesn't work like that, does it? No.
Exactly right, and especially through online, because obviously, you know, you do need that little bit more time and effort into like building relationships. So I think first, the most important thing is building trust. Just like any relationship, right? Like I look at client and coaching a client relationship, that making the client feel comfortable to be able to communicate with me. And I'll just give you a perfect example, actually. So I have a new client. She just came on board a few weeks ago, and she's obviously like done prep with the previous other coaches and things like that. And in the first consultation, like obviously we, you know, I explained everything just that we spoke about, you know, making sure she understand, you know, how things work and things like that. But one thing that really struck me is last week when I was, because what I usually do is obviously they have their check-in days, but usually I'll, you know, send them, you know, Instagram messages or comment on their stories or message them throughout the week just to see how everything's going. And she made a comment that was kind of shocked me a little bit, because she said, "Oh, is it okay if I talk to you outside of the check-in time?" Because she thought she could only contact me during her check-in day. I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, because that was what happened with her previous coach. Like, you know, she could only talk to the person. It's on her check-in day in the email. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I want you to like talk to me all the time. Like, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to message you all the time to annoy you. So, and I think it's really important, obviously, communication. And I know, you know, everyone talks about communication is the key, but it really is in building that relationship and trust with the client. And also, I think very early on, I would let the clients know that, hey, I don't expect everything to be 100%, because I know it's not going to be, because I know myself, not everything's 100% all the time. So I can't expect someone to do the same without having that, you know, knowledge or background, or even just the reality of life, right? Mm-hmm. So making sure that they understand that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. This is not like a test or anything, right? So we don't, and if anything, it's actually better that you come up with like, you know, issues or making mistakes here and there when it comes to your nutrition and training or the rest of that relating to that, because then we can say, okay, this tends to happen quite frequently in your life. Let's look at how we can address that. I think that's very, very important. And also obviously giving the client the knowledge and tools, so that way, you know, because the goal of coaching isn't to having the clients with you forever. Was, you know, the goal is actually helping to educate them so that way they can walk away from the coaching having more knowledge and information, and hopefully they can help someone else as well. So I think in the big picture, that's how you can, I guess, grow the industry as a whole, or, you know, helping people to get more educated and things like that. It's by doing things like this, right? So building the trust, and obviously education is really important. And then start there, you know, and then I guess that's one part where, obviously working with different individuals in the, you know, we probably for up to 3 months to up to 6 months, or maybe 12 months, there's a lot of, I guess, belief systems, and also the way they think and the way they approach their nutrition and training. It's really being impacted on, I guess, how they grew up, you know, and then all the belief in everything that they had when they were younger. For example, you know, if you're someone that grew up in a household, let's say in a lower social economic area, where you typically see a lot of fast food places, right? Like, you know, if you go to a certain area, for example, you're on the Gold Coast, I'm sure if you go to certain suburbs, you'll see, holy shit, there's like KFC next to a Mac. There's a KFC next to a Macca's, there next to a Krispy Kreme, and next to a Hungry Jack's, all in a location, right? And you'll find it's typically in that lower social economical area. Whereas if you go into a little bit more posh, maybe what's a Barbiella or something, I don't know, like a expensive suburb, you don't really see those places there. What you see is expensive cafes, gourmet food places, and, you know, all the I guess healthy, you know, gluten-free cafes and breakfast places and things like that. So, you know, if you're someone that grown up in that environment where, you know, you see the way your parents eat, or your parents approach exercise and everything, I think all those things, it's kind of ingrained in you, and it's really hard to then trying to change someone in that perspective. But then what you can do is then having a conversation, analyze, hey, you know, this is the things that we picked up that you tend to do when it comes to, you know, that we usually relate to, like binge eating, and also even the food choices that I make and things like that. And you can start to work on those sort of things, right? And obviously, you know, there's sometimes that if it's too much, like, you know, you probably need to refer out to like a clinical dietitian or food psychologist and things like that, because obviously that is out of the scope of our practice. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, just having the best interest in the client and making sure they understand that they can communicate with you and having the trust with you, and it's okay to make a mistake, or it's okay to fuck up. Then I personally found making them understand that it will allow them to actually be more likely to adhere to what you're trying to get them to do. And I don't know if you find this, it's quite interesting that, you know, people will pay you money and then lie to you.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
I know what you mean, brother.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so I guess, you know, and I understand that. And so, yeah, that's why, you know, making sure that we have a clear understanding of this, you know, and then, yeah, I think usually if you can be pretty upfront and then say, hey, this is what I want you to do, and this is where you are, and it's trying to find like a fine balance in between. That's usually that's kind of my approach. I don't know what you think, and then I found that works pretty well. But then again, you know, that's what I meant by it goes so much more beyond just giving someone calories and macros or even a diet plan, right? It's everything else outside of that that can actually having a major impact on the ability to adhere, really. So
yeah, that's right. Many chords with me to first look at one of the last points you made there, Alan, in terms of, yeah, people will pay money. They think, I paid my money, it'll all just now be magic and work. It doesn't work like that. Going back again to open, clear communication, it sounds obvious, it sounds simple, but being able to communicate with that client from the get-go, hey, look, I don't mind if you make a mistake or get it wrong, but I need to know what you're doing, because if I don't know what you're doing, I can't make appropriate changes. Therefore, you can then be making changes or no changes, which is counterintuitive to what's actually happening. Because if they're saying they're eating 2,000 calories and they're eating 2,500 calories, which I'm sure most coaches are sitting there nodding their heads like, oh, I know about this, right? Then the metrics are out. And if you're going to bring someone to comp prep, that's not going to work. So again, that goes back to, again, building good habits and behaviors, but again, addressing their background, their upbringing, their ethnicity, their culture, really, really important. And again, it's not really talked about. We do have certain clients, which I call, what I would call dream clients, but perhaps not, or robots, because you will give them everything they need to do, and they really interpret it well. They follow everything to the T. And, you know, yeah, that is all well and good and it's great. And I think that's how a lot of people think it is. But they're not the clients who make you a better coach. And they're not the clients that perhaps need your support and that help you grow. And again, it is a pleasure to work with those clients. And sometimes you even sit there going, really? Like, you don't have any issues? Like, and they just nail every single thing. And, you know, we shouldn't strive to all be like that. I think, you know, if clients are listening now, or people now who've got coaches who go, no, it's like, no, we're all different. It's not about being perfect, you know, and that is, again, you said it, you took the words out of my mouth, the art, keyword, the art of coaching is being able to look at all of those gray areas, all of those little 1%ers, the idiosyncrasies, which make up, you know, being able to get someone from point A to point B, and it certainly isn't a straight line, as you've just mentioned there. So again, I think that's really important. I can definitely relate, you know, and sometimes I think you've got to have those difficult conversations with people, because it's not worth, as I always say to people, you know, I'm not here to take money off people every week. I'm here to help people achieve their goals. The money's just there because, again, I value my time, and so should the other person. And obviously we're running a business, and that involves, you know, transactional occurrences. So really good stuff there, Alan. And I think it's great. You know, it's good to hear that as well, especially in the comp prep realm. What about now when you have clients and you've got them to the stage? Let's first talk about, you know, the game day. You know, you've obviously delivered the goods. What does and again, as an online coach, what does the communication look like throughout their competition period? Like, for example, I imagine sometimes you can be there in person if they're in the area, but say for clients who, you know, they're overseas, or, you know, you're not able to attend, what does that journey look like for you, and that communication look like throughout the competitive weekend?
Yeah, so for myself, I like to be, or I mean, some people probably think I'm super annoying, but I like to be pretty hands-on, so that I'm pretty much like, I'll ask for photos and messages all the time. And then sometimes I incline to be like, I'll send photos pretty much after like every day. And then they'll be like, oh, really? Can I take it tomorrow? But yeah, so I guess that's kind of my approach. And I guess a bit of a, I don't know if you can call me I guess I'm a bit of a control freak, so I want to make sure everything, and most importantly, make sure that they feel confident in their ability to, like, hey, everything's, you know, we've ticked every single boxes, and now it's just time to get up and show off the hard work, right? And obviously, there's a few other variables that make a huge difference when it comes to getting on stage and do well, which is, you know, your posing. Your presentation, it's super, super, super important. And it's one thing that I think people should really pay a lot more attention to. It's not just about, you know, getting the stage ready physique. Even if you have an awesome physique, you lean, if you can't present it properly, and we see that every season, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Someone else will end up beating you because they can just present their physique better. You might be leaner, you might be bigger and better symmetry or whatever, but if you can't show it, the judges can only judge on. And I guess that is the subjective side of the sport, right? Whereas, you know, you can put in all the hard work and get the physique that you want, but if you can't show it. So posing is one thing that I get my clients. I drill them hard, really hard, right right from the start. Again, setting goals on like, this is what I'm going to do each week, for example, working through the poses and going through the consultation and say, all right, this week in your check-in, your goal is to do 3 rounds of posing and holding each pose for 10 seconds, whatever, film your videos, send photos. So starting from there, building up, and then you obviously getting more frequent with the posing practice and all that sort of stuff. So on the day, I'll usually obviously ask for photos, and I'll have all their plans set out. So that way they don't have to stress about like, and also, because the time doesn't always run like they will tell you
Correct.
as far as like what time you get up on stage and stuff, also having a little bit of a backup plan. Yeah, so mainly just making sure everything is done up until that point. So that way, literally the only thing they need to do on the day is get there, put a bit of a top coat on, or get a spray tan, and get a bit of pump on, and you're good to go. So I guess that's kind of like, kind of tying to like the coaching side of things, where you build up enough trust and relationship that, up until that point, they should feel pretty damn confident in obviously the physique they're going to present, and knowing exactly what they have to do on the day. Like obviously, you're going to have different people with different personalities. Like some people get a little bit more stressed out, and some people just be very, very chill. Then that's kind of where you need to adjust how you communicate with them on the day, and also the stuff that you have them doing. But I'll usually be pretty upfront, even from like, I'll start talking about like, hey, this is what's going to look like, with peak week and all this sort of stuff, even from like, weeks out, just so they have an idea of like, what's it going to feel like, making sure, hey, did you take time off work? Did you take time off the day of the next day after the comp? Is your family coming, and have you organized a dinner? Like I look at things like that, like, so that way they, I guess, I suppose, feel like, you're building up all this success, or the image of success in their head. It's not about the placings, but also like then getting up to that point and presenting your physique that is it's a success, and also having your family and friends that supporting you, and also, go out and have a nice dinner and organize all that leading up to the comp. These are actually the things I focus on, because if you've done all the practice with posing, if you've done your nutrition and training, everything else, you should be good to go. There's nothing you need to really worry about on the day, apart from, obviously a bit of a nerve and everything like that. And then obviously the pump up, I'll usually have them do like a pump up routine, if you will, just the stuff that we'll do. Outside of that, it's pretty much really chilled out day if you think about it. And then the less things they need to stress about during peak week is probably better.
100%.
Yeah, so
I think
pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, preparation is key. And again, the old quote, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And it's nice that you have that. Once again, you're sort of building it in there. You're not just going, hey, 1 week out, bam, 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 bam. It's just you're constantly sort of intertwining these threads of conversation in throughout the time. And you're building, hey, like, this is what we're going to do. This is coming up. Have you got the time off? Because again, I think this is something that really helped me. I'm quite organized. People who know me probably sometimes over-organized or can overthink it. But yeah, making sure that you've got the time off, if you paid your memberships, if you got your tan, like all these little things really add up. And the last thing you want to be doing when you're depleted on that day is thinking about, fuck, I've got to get this, I've got to get that. Like you said, you want to be able to enjoy the experience. And I think a lot of those elements there, Alan, that you have just mentioned are so overlooked, especially posing. I'm really passionate about that. That was something that I started to do, which sounds ludicrous to people, but I actually started doing it years out. Now, obviously I wasn't posing every day, but I started to spend time with, some of the best coaches, and I started to learn from some of the best coaches. I was watching videos, I was, spending and investing time and money into coaches and spending, that one-on-one, because wow, it was a lot different than I thought. And posing is a lot harder than I think if you've not done it, people will perceive. Like, do you think, oh yeah, posing, like, it's posing. It's like, no, like it's a workout and it's everything. And as you said, it's such a shame when you have someone who's dedicated all this time and all this energy, and they've got this beautiful package, but they can't present it because they started practicing 6 weeks out, which isn't enough time, because you really want to get to a point where posing just becomes natural. It should just become, because again, that's one thing that you've got to think about. And even with all the practice I had, I know that I still wasn't completely comfortable. And I almost feel more comfortable now because I continue to do it in the off season. But again, you've got to make it, again, it's building habits, building behaviors. So yeah, again, I think for the audience listening as well, you know, even if you guys want to make some notes here, because I think this is really, really good stuff. So to segue from that, we've got the comp day, you know, you've had that communication, you've set everything up in an ideal world, you know, they've achieved some great successes, they've enjoyed the experience. What does the communication look like with your clients after the show? Obviously you have a congratulations, you have a little chat. Again, we could probably do a whole nother podcast on this, so we may have to go around too, because I think you're aware of what's coming, what question I'm going to ask. And for the audience listening, team, I'm just going to really highlight this. I would say that the post-comp period is more important, which sounds backwards, than the competition prep itself, purely based on the fact that this is where most people fall down. They create some, you know, really bad habits, eating disorders, post-comp blues, and they can really sabotage themselves and their mindset, you know, instead of having, you know, have it really be, you know, a bit of a propelling experience into, you know, a phenomenal off season. So perhaps maybe we can, because I want to be respectful of your time, Alan, here. Maybe you can just give us a bit of a streamlined version, or perhaps just delve into some of the really key things you think that's important, and what you do with your athletes after that phase.
Man, it's a huge topic just on its own, man. And a few really good points that you touch up on there as well. I just want to elaborate a little bit more. Like, and then you know how like people like leave it to the last minute to practice their posing. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, right, when you're 6 weeks out, like the last thing that you want to do is to spend your time working on your posing when you barely have energy to walk.
Correct.
So that's why it's so important. You know what I mean? So get the work done early on. So later on, you say, okay, just go through the motion. That's all you need to do. So that's an important point there. And when it comes to post-comp, like, man, the post-comp period is like probably harder than the actual prep itself, because now you don't have a reason or why to stop you from pretty much eating everything in sight. And that's the biggest thing, right? And if you think about it, again, you know, it goes back to how amazing our body is. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because all those physiological adaptations that we have experienced. Now, post-comp, you're still in that same, even though you might feel a little bit like a huge weight off your shoulder, you feel great, you did well, and all this sort of stuff, but it doesn't change fundamentally how your body is feeling or reacting, and all the rest of it, right? So now it's like, okay, you have all the feeling hungry, you have all the hunger signals, your satiety, your hunger signal is up, your satiety level is down, you're low on energy, you know, stressed out, and all the rest of it, right? And then your energy availability is so low, like your body is signaling you everything to make you eat food, and now you have all the reasons to eat food and nothing to stop you from keeping yourself at a decent weight. So okay, I guess there's obviously a few approaches when it comes to post-comp. So I'll usually without coaching, I'll make sure the clients stay on for at least another 4 weeks post-comp. That's the minimum term they have to stay on for 4 weeks post-comp, so that way we can help them work through that period post-competition and setting them up in a good position. Or I guess the way I look at it is there's no perfect way to walk in out of post-comp based on the individuals, but the way I like to approach it is, first thing is focus on restoring health. That's the most important part, right? And again, you know, it's not the healthiest thing to do to be in that state. So understand that you have to be okay with putting on a few kilos of body weight. So body fat pretty quickly for both male and female. I think for female, it's probably even more important, because obviously it's not uncommon to see when girls have low energy availability, they will lose their menstrual. They will most likely lose their menstrual cycle, and that's obviously not a good thing long term. And we do see that a lot of competitors lose their cycle for, you know, sometimes up to years, which is not ideal. You know, there's
No.
certain things that, like bone density and things like that that you can't really reverse. Whereas for guys, you know, once you get enough body fat down, you know, hopefully your testosterone and everything will come back up. But yeah, so restoring health. So my approach to nutrition is pretty much, I'll set their calories back up to maintenance straight away. That's how I would like to do it. But in saying that, that really depends on the individual, because some people just can't handle that well. So then that's the psychological side of things that you have. Maybe you just have to keep them a little bit more restricted and utilize more of a slower approach to bring calories back up. And that's obviously, you know, goes back to the specific individuals and how their psychology is and everything like that. And I think for most people, you know what, I think when you get into that stage ready physique, just because everything that you're doing, I think you will develop some sort of distorted, I don't want to use the word eating disorder because that's a completely different clinical side of things, but like distorted view on how you see food and things like that. You know, like, because all the physiological changes, like, you know, you might be craving flavors and things like that you never thought that you would have liked, you know. You start making weird combination of foods. And you know what I mean? So I think it will definitely have a massive impact. But obviously, once you get back to your normal set point, you should be fine. But I guess it's getting to that point in a sensible rate. It's really important. And also making sure, like, psychologically, I think that's probably the most important part, because so you understand that, okay, you probably will eat off whatever the target that you set for yourself, or that we set, and understand that is okay. But you don't have to feel guilty, because I think no one should feel guilty about eating food. And as a coach, you should not make your clients feel bad about, you know, going off a plan, eating food or whatever, because but rather looking at the deeper issue and address it and helping work through that situation so they can obviously achieve their goal or whatever. Because then that's when you see, like, you know, people binge and then they feel so guilty afterwards, and then they jump straight back on whatever the diet they were on before. They couldn't handle that for more than 2 days, and they binge again and started this binge and restrict cycle, right? And that's a huge issue. So I think, and I will even like tell the clients that, hey, I know this is not going to be 100%, but this is what we're trying to achieve. And then I will actually give them few days or few meals a week, just so that way they can go out and restore their social life. You know, go have a dinner with your friends and family, go whatever that you feel like, as long as you don't binge, like, there'll be no issue at all. And I think that's a very important part, as opposed to being too restrictive, because I understand, you know, like I said, you know, the lifestyle, the social aspect of, you know, of life outside of dieting is really, really important. So go see your friends and family, your partners and whatever, go have a nice meal out, because you probably haven't been able to do that for months. Do that is very important. But obviously, as long as you understand that in the big picture, we still have to keep you, I guess, in a sensible shape, so that way you don't get put on too much weight too quickly, which makes it a little bit harder later on. And because post-comp, you are primed to store body fat, right? It's so easy to put body fat back on. So as opposed to, you know, the typical post-comp rebound that people think that you'll put on a whole bunch of muscle. I guess for natural bodybuilders, you don't. You're just going to put on a whole lot of body fat until you slowly bring your performance back up. So I guess, yeah, another good thing is setting a new goal, setting performance goals, having a program ready to go, working on your weak points. And yeah, so bring your calories back up to maintenance or slightly above, and give yourself some flexibility there, and understand that it's not going to be 100%, but it's okay. And then we can work on, you know, then give it a few weeks. Once you put on a few kilos over time, then everything should hopefully get back into homeostasis. Yeah, that's pretty much, but then, you know, there's so much variability there depending on the individuals and how you approach it. But yeah, that's kind of like my preferred way to approach it. Just, yeah, like I said, understand it's not going to be 100%, but put health first and then set a new goal. That's the three most important things.
Yeah, there really isn't a one size fits all for the old post comp strategies in terms of, you know, some people are gonna want to take it a bit slower. Some people are gonna just not be able to. And again, you've got to have that. It's a bit of a what we call like a range, I guess, right? We want to make sure, again, it comes back to what we've been saying. This is the theme, I think, throughout this podcast is communication and behaviors and lifestyles and habits. And if you know, and you've built good rapport with the athlete and your client, then you're perhaps better or in a better position to set goals with them and expectations, because you will know, okay, I think my client's more, adept to this, or they're going to be more vulnerable to this. And you sort of put these like little countermeasures in, and oftentimes it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And it might be the way you word something, or again, you might just give them a slightly higher, maintenance or whatever it is, because it's not going to be perfect. But I think one of the most important things, what you just said there, Alan, which I really want people to get across, is that it's okay to put on body fat. You do need to do it, which is hard because you've just seen yourself probably in the best shape you've ever seen, especially for first time competitors, and you're going to have to watch that physical look deteriorate to a degree, but you will obviously then eventually look better and feel better. And then secondly as well, having that good relationship with food, and that you don't beat yourself up. You are going to overeat, and look, you do get better at it. I think, you said it before in one of the first questions. We've all been there, man. You just you can't. It doesn't matter. Like, even if you get told, right, you just do it. Like, every person I spoke to, I not spoke to one bodybuilder who's managed the first time around to not overeat. Like, we've all done it. I know for me, even though I've only competed once, I've got lean and very lean many times. And every time I get a little bit better. I remember the first time, you make yourself sick, and you just think, wow, like, I feel really bad. Like, I've self-sabotaged myself, right? And then again, you've got to keep that positive mind frame, or perhaps go, you know what, this is okay. Why have I done this? How can I improve on it? And then again, you get sort of less restrictive. But it's funny, by doing that, you also get better at adherence, because I've got a plan. I know I'm going to have, like you said, a couple of meals out with family and friends. You don't feel so restricted. You acknowledge that, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a little bit fluffy, going to get a little bit cuddly for a while. And then, you're setting a new goal. And I think this is why we see a lot of bodybuilders now, as you've done, setting powerlifting goals, because again, it's like one of the best things we can do to offset this, higher energy availability again is, well, fuck, let's use it in the gym, man. Let's get to work. Like, obviously have a little bit of a rest. Don't go balls straight away, because obviously there's a lot of adaptations that have got to come back, and you're not going to be able to a degree, lift the same amount of volume. But, getting in the gym and still getting amongst it, and starting to remember that feeling of, oh shit, this is what it feels like to get a pump again, and actually feel really good about training, rather than like, I've got to drag my ass through this whole session. So again, I think, like you said, focusing on those positives and setting new goals, I think that's vital. And that is something that really, really helped me, and I think helps a lot of clients get through that phase, and something that you just get better at. But so much to unpack within that topic, something I'm really passionate about as well. And so perhaps, again, we could come back. I'd love to talk more about that, because I think it can really help people, and looking at some key approaches, because it seems to me that is where a lot of the time things can make or break and fall apart for the athlete, and whether they actually continue to compete again, because they've had, unfortunately, perhaps not the support, not the guidance, where a coach is going to see you later, and then they've put on all this weight. They're sort of left in a lurch. It's really, really horrible, especially I think for females. You mentioned it's even more important to get it right, because there's a lot more at stake. So yeah, we'd love to unpack that further. But again, coming close to time, a couple of rapid fire questions I'd love to ask you now, Alan. I asked them to all my guests. They're just really quick. They're a bit lighthearted. They're a bit fun. So I'm going to fire off a few. I've got a few new ones.
I'll do my best.
Mate, that's all good. And then we'll wrap it up with the final question I ask all my guests. But before we do, so the first one is, this is a fan favorite. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be and why?
Be invisible.
Invisible. Why?
Then I don't know, like, because I'm really into like looking at how people behave and things like that, and I just want to see like how people behave, and then when they can't see me,
Of your
that's
clients.
what I'm really into at the moment. So yeah, or or maybe can have like super hearing and stuff, can hear everything
Yeah.
that's going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I see what you mean. See what your clients are up to halfway around the world.
yeah.
No, that's good. All right, my second one would be, what is perhaps the most valuable purchase that has been $50 or under that you've made in the last 12 months that's been had a really positive impact on your life or the lives of others?
Oh man, can it be like just over 50? Like
It can.
$25?
I'll. Yeah.
All right,
No. Yeah. Of course.
all right. So this is probably the best thing I ever purchased. Is the air fryer from Kmart. Oh, it doesn't have to be Kmart. Air fryer. Have you had it before?
Yes. Yes. People have
Man,
been
it's the best
raving
piece
about
of
that.
it's the best piece of appliance. I think it's like just over $60 from Kmart. It's honestly the best piece of appliance I've ever had. So anyone that wants to make the best potatoes and chips and all that sort of stuff, or even anything really, go get one from Kmart.
I'm going to second that because it's on my to-do list. I've heard non-stop raving reviews,
Yeah.
and it's so affordable too. So yes, go get yourself an air fryer, especially if you're in comp prep.
Oh, it makes life so much easier.
All about that life. My third question is a bit more bodybuilding related. I feel this is appropriate. And I know that, you probably kind of just experienced this, but what is your favorite go-to meal? And let's frame it as, what was the meal that you had, the thing that you, most looking forward to after your comp prep? And it can be like main, dinner, dessert, drink, like what's your combo? What does Alan love to eat?
It's 100% a huge rack of pork ribs. I don't know why every time. A huge rack of pork ribs. That's just my go-to, and then that really satisfies me. Hey, so that's it. But the funny thing is, I'm not really into pork. I don't know for some reason, but there's something about pork ribs just really gets me.
There you go. Maybe it's a ritual, right? It's just like this is how we
I don't know.
come out the season. Mate, it's good. Why not? If it's one, and like you said, we do have those weird combinations sometimes after comp prep. Your taste buds change, and you're like, man, why am I eating that? So, very, very interesting. But I think that's a winner. That was one of the meals I had. Actually, that was my meal afterwards. I had the big pork ribs, and that really hit the spot. And my last question, Ellen, is a bit more serious. This is the one I ask all my guests. So it is, can you identify a fear that you've had in your life? It can be small, it can be big, it can be recent. What the fear was, how you overcame it, and what you learned and took away from overcoming this fear.
And it's a really good one. And it's something that I'm still working through it, which is, I guess, just the fear of like how people look at me, or like, really thinking about like how people view me. And especially now, obviously, even doing stuff like this, right? You're putting out more content and getting my face out to like, the social medias and all sort of stuff. The first thing out there, oh shit, like people are going to think I'm like, do I sound stupid, or do I, just having that doubt in myself, I guess, doubt and fear, that's probably the things that how people are going to view me. But then I understand, like, eventually I slowly work into like, because you can't just tell someone like, oh, just don't think like that, because that's not how it works. You can't just shoot, but then I guess eventually working through like, having a little bit more confidence in myself, and just it sounds super cliche when I say this, but just be yourself and just trusting myself in my ability, and just stick to what I believe in. I guess, just be a good person, really. And then I think then, and not like you don't give a shit about what other people think, but I've started to come to realize that if I just bet on myself, having the confidence in myself, and just speak what I truly believe, then I'll be okay with whatever, how people see me, or whatever the message come across, because at least it's genuine. And that's something I'm still working on as well. So,
and forever building, and it always really it's ironic. It strikes me as ironic because every time I speak, I get, it's a privilege to speak to guests like yourself, Alan, and, I'm able to do this. And again, we talked off camera and do this, do what I love. And it's just funny how many people I speak to who have these same doubts, and it sort of emphasizes that we're all human. We're all vulnerable. We all go through these things and these feelings. And I think it's really great, as I said before as well off camera, like to receive this feedback off your peers, from other people, because it gives you that sort of feedback of, oh, you know what, maybe I am on the right track. And you get this belief and this confidence over time, because it isn't a switch, is it? You can't just go, and I'm going to think like this or I'm going to think like that. It's something that always takes time. And again, to emphasize a point I made off camera, this is good because this is what will make you a genuine, authentic, good coach, because you are always trying to be better. You have this, and it's not negativity. It's just like, I've got to be on top of my game. I want to be better. I want to be better for me, for my clients, for my peers, for my family, for my friends. And I think that's a really good growth mindset to have. And again, over time, you build that confidence in yourself and in your abilities. And to kind of underline the last thing, which I think is a really beautiful way to sum up this podcast, is, again, believe in yourself, believe in your abilities and what you can do. Stay true to your values and your ethics, and it will come to fruition. So, absolutely excellent stuff, Alan. And before you leave, for people who want to find out more about you, perhaps they want to get in contact, learn more about how, your coaching again, or perhaps they want to come on board, where's the best place to just get in touch with you and to follow along with your journey?
So the best place probably be my Instagram. So it would be LML90. Or you can find me on Flex Success page as well. So flex_success, or on the website, flexsuccess.com.au. That would be the best place to reach me, especially with the coaching side of things. And, last thing I just want to say, thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed this kind of conversations. And obviously, we share a lot of similar values and everything. So it really makes the conversation great. And so I want to say, be fearless.
You beat me. You beat me to the punchline there, Alan. Not that you're the first person. You've basically beat me to the punchline of my own podcast there. But I must admit, I was just going to say, very similar values, very similar ethics. It's very refreshing, and it's been an absolute privilege, my friend. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to, continuing to watch you grow and inspire people on your journey. And again, I'm sure we'll be in touch and perhaps produce some more beautiful content and helpful content for other people. So as always, I will put those links though in the comment section below, whatever platform you're listening on. Guys, remember, if you like this podcast, make sure to leave a rating and a review on iTunes, Spotify, whatever you're listening to. It helps the channel grow. It helps more people get this knowledge into their ears, and that's what we're all about here, man. And again, thank you for all the listeners and the consistent growing channel. It's very inspiring, and we really do appreciate you, because without you guys, we wouldn't have a channel. So guys, as always, until next time, as Alan has already said, stay fearless.
Be fearless.